Okay. First and foremost, a while ago, I was having problems on YouTube. On my end, my iPad, you hit a button to upload to YouTube, and it brings you to your videos. You select the video you want, you upload it. It was not showing me my most recent videos to upload. I was plugging it into the desktop, trying to download the videos, upload the videos to the desktop, trying to drag them to the YouTube thing on the desktop search engine. Then it got even worse. I would hit there's a button you hit upload, you record directly onto YouTube and go directly from there to upload. I did that a couple of times, it was okay. Then I would do that, go into upload, hit the record button, and it would be mute. I would literally be like doing like this. So that didn't work. Then I did the simplest thing in the world. I deleted the app and re-uploaded it. Reinstalled it rather. Presto. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about Minneapolis and Minnesota as a whole, just for a minute or two. The Somali immigrants, who some are now citizens, some are still immigrants, they came here at the invitation of Bush Sr. in 1991-ish, so it's roughly 2 years and change before the Battle of Mogadishu. And that was that. Now, this is just straight up fact. The past couple of decades, the Somali community has had the hardest time assimilating. The least amount of English speakers, least educated, most on government assistance of any group or religion or race or anything like that at all, by definition. And you're probably going to show me a Somali guy who became a doctor, and that's good. But for the most part, they've had a hard time assimilating. Now, they were believed to have committed $9 billion worth of fraud, which may be the biggest fraud in the nation's history. They were sending money out of the country, in particular back to Somalia, to terrorist groups. Keep in mind, these are guys that killed American soldiers at Benghazi, at Mogadishu, keep saying Benghazi, and keep in mind these are guys who were hijacking ships. Example, the Maersk ship from Captain Phillips. Now, if you are an immigrant in America, you cannot be supporting any outside terrorists or anything like that. If you are an American citizen, you cannot be harboring or giving comfort to any aid of the United States. True. Now, it is believed that Tim Walsh was told this by someone. I don't know if it was state police, comptroller, consumer protection, but someone in Minnesota was telling Tim Walsh point blank, sir, we have a lot of fraud going on here. A lot of the fraud involved taxpayer money at the state level and the federal level. And Tim Walsh would say flat out, shut up. We're not going to investigate at all. Here's the problem with that. Now, most people have told me throughout my life, whether they be people I know or documentaries, President Nixon ordered a burglary at the Watergate Hotel. But my 8th grade history teacher told me something different. He told me that someone who worked for President Nixon did a burglary at the Watergate Hotel, and when President Nixon found out about it, he refused to report it, and he resigned because of that. Well, either President Nixon authorized the burglary, which is a felony, or he turned a blind eye, and as the Chief Executive Officer of the United States, he's obligated to report a felony at DC Metro. He didn't. Either way, he had to go. He resigned. Tim Walsh either A, allowed fraud to continue, or actively covered it up. one way or another he's wrong. Now ICE has obviously the main job is enforcing federal warrants, in particular related to deportation orders. Yes. But ICE also has the power to enforce and investigate any claim of fraud by any immigrant, legal or illegal, or any crime at all, legal or illegal. Oh, by the way, the daycare thing, I forgot to mention that. If you send a kid to daycare, you pay the expenses. If you are impoverished, you may get government assistance. If a daycare has enough impoverished children in it, it may get government assistance. And there were daycares in Somalia, like the Leering Center, that literally would have a couple of adults sitting in a room all day and night, and there would not be a single kid in sight. That's fraud. So now, every single person committing the fraud would vote for Tim Kaine, would vote for Tim Walz rather, whether they be voting for governor or vice president, and because of that, it's believed he didn't want to interfere. So Trump sent ICE in. Now, another case in point. I went to high school with a guy who was from Colombia. He was here for so long, he had no accent. But a few years after we got to high school together, he stabbed one of our brothers. When the police came to arrest him, he had more guns than anybody. They were all illegal guns. They called in the feds. The feds said, we don't care about the stabbing. He went to federal prison for the gun charges, and then on his way out of the prison, he was arrested by ICE and put on the first plane out of the country. He cannot return, ever. So ICE went to Minneapolis, Minnesota, places around the surrounding areas, to enforce federal arrest warrants and deportation warrants, which they already had, but also to investigate the fraud and all that bullshit. Now, most experts will tell you, police officers, self-defense experts, if someone approaches your car, leave immediately, go around them or whatever. Okay, they might try to block you, they might stand in your way, go around them, and that's it, ignore them. Or if you're surrounded entirely, you should at least run them over because they're probably gonna kill you. Now, if you are stopped in your vehicle by a legitimate agent of the law, the opposite is true. You cannot leave. You cannot go around them. You cannot disobey them. Anytime an agent of the law approaches your vehicle, you are required by law to comply with them. They may say, I want your license and registration. They may say, go around the block. They may say, pull over. They may say, show me your hands. Or, worst case, you're not free to leave. Or, worst case scenario, they may say, get out of the car. Now, good news is you're free to leave. Bad news is you're leaving with them. Okay? And standing in front of a car, for someone who knows from experience, is the universal communication for, I don't want you to leave. Now, 99.99% of the time, I stand in front of a car, it's because I want the pedestrian to move to the sidewalk, and the car may not proceed. Other times, I may have a situation like the morning before this incident happened. A car was making a left-hand turn. A mother and daughter on an electric bike, scooter, were coming down the hill, and I said, you will not move until they're clear. It's lawful command. Later that afternoon, I had an ambulance coming, and a mini school bus was making a right-hand turn. And I pointed at him twice, stop, and he almost wanted to go, and I said, no, you will wait. You must wait for the emergency vehicle, okay? Certain groups of people have the power to give you lawful commands in your vehicle, and you must comply. Okay? You're not free to leave until they say so. Now, this particular woman had 3 children with 2 men. It is pretty obvious she was involved in a same-sex relationship with this other woman at the time. She's believed to have been an agitator. Okay. Someone agitates law enforcement officers. And it is believed that she followed these agents around town for several hours. And the video in question, several videos, including one released today, show this woman jackknifing her car across the road, blocking agents' pathway. And the most recent video, which was released yesterday afternoon, it's Saturday morning now, shows her. It shows the agent's point of view. He's filming her tag, he's filming her car, her face, and her partner, or wife, girlfriend says, it was the same tag as earlier, it'll be the same tag as later, blah, 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 blah. His partner says, get out of the car. Now, when they say get out of the car, what does that mean? That means you're going away, you're getting arrested, okay? Majority of the time they say stay in the car. But when they say stay out of the car, you're going away. Now that is an arrest. Now, technically speaking, anytime any peace officer halts your movement, that is by definition an arrest, because you cannot leave. Although, let's face it, when they ask you a question, have you been arrested ever in your lifetime? Okay, they don't expect you to say, well, a police officer told me to stop last week, or the traffic guy that, or the crossing guard that. No, they mean we was taken away. Well, now you are being taken away. So this agent said, get out of the car. When he said that, the other agent moved in front of the car. Like I said a minute ago, standing in front of the car is universal language for I don't want you to leave. And thugs, goons, terrorists, lunatics, mental patients, they have no business telling you not to leave. However, any agent of the law, it could be a crossing guard, a village constable, any agent of the law, standing in front of your car, you may not leave. You may comply. That's it. And while you're standing in front of the car, the other woman says go, and she jams her gas and goes. And he shoots her and kills her. Now, at the exact moment he shot her, did he honestly and reasonably believe there was a 51% chance he was going to die or be seriously wounded? That's the question. Only that question. Now, you may ask yourself, why did he go over to her? Why did he stand in front of her? Here's the thing about that, in case you can't know that. An officer of the law that is executing the law is under no obligation to retreat. You, this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, if you were in a situation like that and you fail to retreat, that could be taken as a sign of aggression. But when you are an agent of the law affecting an arrest on a suspect, you are not obligated to leave or retreat. So as a law enforcement officer, you cannot fault him for moving forward. If a citizen moved forward, that would be a different story. A civilian, but because an agent of the law is moving forward, he has that authority. And there's a whole bunch of guys on social media that know what's going on. And there's a whole bunch of guys more that have not a fucking clue. And it's terrifying. I have heard people say they didn't know ICE were agents. I have heard people say ICE can't arrest people. I have heard people say ICE were not trained. ICE have no idea what they're doing. She was getting away. The simple fact that she left the scene means she's wrong. I personally don't think she was getting away. I think she was going towards him on purpose, and she did hit him. But when the agent says, get out of the car, that means you are under arrest. And if you leave the scene, you are escaping. You may not leave when you are under detention of any kind. If an officer says, pull over, you must pull over. If an officer says, I want your license and registration right now, you must comply with that. Okay? And you may very well be a police officer yourself from another town. You may be a police officer from that town. You are still obligated to comply when you are being detained. period. You have no choice. So when she was harassing them all day, that was obstructing justice. When she jackknifed her car, that was obstructing justice. When he said get out of the car and she took off, that was escape. When she hit him, that was a federal offense, assault of a federal agent. There is no thing that she did, period, that is correct. Everything she did is illegal, period. Now, her so-called wife or girlfriend, whatever, she must also be charged because she was the one encouraging her to go. She said, go, go, go. Okay? And someone said today that this couple, you have a gullible idiot, which is the one that was killed, and a dominant butch, like, okay, well, that was what happened. The woman behind the wheel was a dumbass, and her wife or girlfriend, whatever you want to call the woman, was manipulating her. And what happens when a strong person manipulates a weak person, the weak person dies. Example, several years ago there was a gangbanger in Chicago with his apprentice gangbanger. And they were out at 3 o'clock in the morning shooting at cars. They heard the siren, and the older gang member gave his sidekick the gun. And when the police came and chased him, he would not drop it, and they shot him. The smart gang member got away, the stupid gang member got killed. Case in point, the smart girl lived, the stupid girl died, okay? They tell you to commit a crime and you commit it, that means you're a fucking idiot. Okay? There is no situation at all that you can point to where this woman is correct. And in Minneapolis right now and surrounding areas, there are a whole bunch of other idiots who are A, obstructing justice, and B, assaulting agents. Okay? Your hometown hero obstructed justice, assaulted a federal officer, and was killed. And your response is to do exactly what she did. The definition of insanity is doing the same exact thing and expecting a different result. And that's it, guys. Thank you. Good night.